Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Maureen and I'm so glad that you are here. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been with me for a bit, welcome back. It's been a minute. So, hey, I am so glad to be back with you guys. So, how are you? Like, really, how are you doing? It seems like a simple question, right? It's something that we say to everybody we meet, okay? But do we really take the time to search ourselves before we answer that? Or do we even take the time to even consider that someone is not okay, right? That the answer they're going to give us is not the usual, I'm all right, and you. Now, this happened to me once, right? And at church, even, it's always a good place to learn a lesson. I asked that question to someone like, hey, how are you? And this was someone that I was not necessarily close to, right? A person I had met during one of those couples small group. So I didn't know her well. So one Sunday, I saw her, hey, how are you? And then the worst thing happened. She told me the truth. I was not prepared for the truth, honestly. It took me by surprise. So she went on to tell me how her week had gone, how she hadn't been feeling well, and how she had had a miscarriage. Now, to tell you the truth, I did not know how to respond because I was not emotionally prepared to hear her answer, right? I was prepared for, I'm all right, and you, and oh, God is good all the time, God is good, you know. So you can imagine, like, now in that moment where she is telling me what's going on and she's crying, and I'm thinking, okay, okay. I'm frozen, right? Because I don't know how to respond. I can assure you that was the last time I asked someone how they were doing unconsciously without thinking through what I was about to ask a person, right? So that is a lesson I have learned. So if I ask you how you are, hey, it means I'm emotionally prepared to hear what you're about to say. Now, this is something that we are so used to doing. Now, when you don't ask someone how they're doing, you kind of come off as being weird, but I would rather not ask if I'm not prepared to hear the story, if I'm not prepared. And also, on the flip side of the coin, are you also prepared to answer truthfully what's going on, right? We're just used to going around just covering everything, covering how we are feeling, covering what we are going through, be all happy clappy all the time, life's good. And yet internally, things are falling apart. Now, this past month, I had to take a backseat emotionally, right? There were just so many things going on emotionally that I was tapped out. Like I had nothing. I remember feeling so downtrodden, right? So weary because I had nothing to give emotionally. Now, that's very hard for me because I tend to be such an emotional support for people, right? And I didn't have anything. I remember just like walking, mopping around here, and my husband being like, "Hey, you okay? You know what's going on?" And to tell you the truth, I couldn't give it. I didn't know. I really didn't know what was wrong because physically I was fine, but I just felt exhausted, right? And I remember telling him, like, I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with me, right? Because I'd never taken the time to actually be like, hey, maybe it's not physical. Maybe you're just emotionally tired, right? I didn't do that. So it went on for a couple of weeks where I did not want to pick up my phone. I did not want to reply my messages. It was just such a big chore. Everything that is normally like easy for me was hard. Even just like hearing people's issues, I just didn't have the energy for it. So I went into seclusion, right? And I remember praying about it one night and like, God, like, what's happening? I'm so tired. I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with people. And how do I continue in doing what you've called me to do if I cannot be available emotionally for people? And I remember in that moment, Isaiah 40 came into my mind, and I got my Bible on my phone and I searched for it and I read it. And I was like, wow, okay. Not only do you see me, you hear me. And not only do you hear me, you've got a solution for my problem, right? So if you don't know what Isaiah 40 says, go look it up. I'll just paraphrase, right? It basically says that God does not tire, He doesn't grow weary, right? His powers do not faint. Okay, that even young men, right, even the youth grow tired, they grow weary, but those that call or those that hope in the Lord will renew their strength. And that is exactly what I needed in that moment. I needed to hope in God, right? So I basically said, you know what? I'm putting everything at your feet. I don't know what's going on, but you do, right? So I am giving everything to you. And honestly, I felt like a weight got lifted off my shoulders because not only I wasn't carrying my own burden and like I had put it down. Now, did everything resolve in that moment? No. Okay. It didn't. But I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right. And I remember hearing, put everything down. And getting confused, I'm like, no, if I put everything down, things are going to fall apart, like emotionally, right? I'm an emotional support to a lot of my grown-up kids, you know, friends. Like, if I put that down, things are going to fall apart. And I kept hearing, put everything down. So I did. I I put everything down. And guess what? People did not fall apart. Life went on. Yeah. In fact, that could have been better for it because they learned how to cope, to do things and to consider things that they hadn't before, right? Because I was not necessarily just carrying everyone's burdens. So I won't lie to you, when I started practicing that, it was very difficult not to be as present for people, like emotionally, right? All I wanted to do was jump in, you know, like it always reminds me of like a sport analogy, right? When the coach like takes you out of the game and all you want to do is like, put me back in. And the coach is like, no, you're tired. Okay, you need to sit on the bench for a bit, right? So you sit on the bench, you're grumbling, and the fear is, okay, for some of us or for other people as well, the fear is if I'm on the bench too long, I will be replaced, right? If I'm out of people's lives for too long, I will be replaced. And God was like, no, there's only one of you, right? There's one of me and there's one of you, right? You are not replaceable. Okay. The things that are in you are not replaceable. Now, if you are walking in someone's lane and doing someone else's job, what do you think is going to happen? You will be replaced. Right? But if you are walking in your lane, if you are walking in what you've been called for, you are not replaceable. So being on the bench, after a while, it gets comfortable, right? I'm like, oh, okay. I'm kind of enjoying this rest thing, right? So I'm like, let's go with the flow. I was enjoying it. I took the time off. I did not worry about things I would normally have worried about. And I was feeling really light. I won't lie to you, I was enjoying it. And then the coach comes back and says, okay, now it's time to get back in the game. And you're like, no, I'm not ready. I'm resting over here. And coach is like, no, it's time. You have forgotten that you're the one who didn't want to get out of the game, right? Who wanted to go right back, jump right back in. Now you're like, the bench is kind of nice, right? So that was me like for 2 weeks. I was like, I'm enjoying the bench. I'm liking it over here. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. So if you're struggling at any one of those stages, whether you don't want to take the risk or whether it's time to jump back in, you know, you know who to call on. You know exactly what you need to do, right? Just do it. At times, as believers, we wear weariness as a badge of honor, right? Like we are doing so much for the kingdom. I'm so tired, but you know, God doesn't want you to be weary. God doesn't want you to do things out of obligation, right? He wants you to do things from the heart with joy and gladness. So if you're at that point where you're weary, the coach is saying, get out of the game for a bit. Take some rest. Yeah? You need the rest. Take it. And if you've been on the bench for a bit and the coach is saying go back in, trust him. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. Go back in. You're ready. Right. So I'm back. I'm ready. And I am so glad I took that rest because the last week has been hectic. Now, if this had happened like a couple of weeks ago, I would not have been able to deal with it. I would have broken down, okay, basically. But I was rested. I was ready for it. It it just took me a minute to be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. But I was all right, right? I took it in strides and I'm here. I'm okay. So the question is, how are you doing? Are you all right? Do you need to get out of the game? Do you need time to rest? You deserve to rest. Take the time. Don't worry about what's happening around you, especially emotional, like weariness. Physically, it's easy to notice when we're physically tired, right? It's easy to take that rest, but emotionally, at times we don't take that time to introspect, right? To actually realize that we are emotionally tired. So I am giving you permission today. Okay. I don't know who needs to hear this, but take time for you. Right? Take emotional rest. Believe me, everybody is going to be just fine. In fact, maybe that's exactly what they need right now, for you to take the rest. And when you come back, you'll be better for it. You will appreciate it, and you'll be well rested for the next thing. All right? So until next time, take care.